In the heart of Wyoming, where the wind gnaws at your bones, and even the oldest oaks remember every step, I watched a horse stand at the edge of his own destruction, massive, black as a bruised sky, wild and flat-out terrifying. They said he'd broken bones and gaits and spirits in about equal measure, passed from ranch to ranch like a dare nobody was dumb enough to take twice. On auction day, you could feel it in the air. Nobody wanted this horse, not for love, not for money, and definitely not for the bruises. The only thing standing between him and a one-way ride to the slaughterhouse was the fact that nobody wanted to sign their name to that fate either. That's when I showed up, limping, broke, hands calloused from work nobody thanks you for, and a stubborn streak as wide as the prairie. The auctioneer, Clint, barked out numbers, his voice gritty as the wind, and watched those numbers tumble like dice that wouldn't land. The horse, let's call him Valor, because he needed a name and so did I, watched the crowd like he was already counting the ones who'd let him down. When my hand went up at $150, it wasn't bravado. Heck, it wasn't even optimism. Just this feeling, like maybe broken things can sometimes find each other and make something worth keeping. People murmured I was a dead man walking. Some even made bets on how many days I'd last. Yeah, that happened. I signed the papers, shook the auction dust from my boots, and drove Valor home in a battered trailer that squealed every time he shifted his weight. The old driver shot me a look that said more than any warning, watch your knees, man, they don't grow back. At my place, a pen barely held together by borrowed steel and hope waited. I opened the gate slow, letting Valor catch a whiff of this new life before he leapt out, all fury and muscle, drawing a line in the dust with every hoofbeat. First week was repairs, busted rails, bent posts, more sweat than sense. Valor escaped twice, once by tricking a latch, once by clearing a fence like it was nothing but an inconvenience. Each time, I tracked him across the land, heart pounding, hoping he'd choose not to run far. And both times, he let himself be turned back, not because I'd earned it, but because, hell, maybe he was just curious. I never called him a monster. I called him a horse. But some nights, listening to him hammer the rails in the dark, I understood why folks whispered about curses. Week 2, I moved him to the far edge of my property, sunk posts so deep I hit clay, braced them with every ounce of stubborn I could scrounge. Water came by hose, feed through a gap in the fence, always hands open, always slow. I told him, not forever, just until we know each other. He blew dust in my face for an answer, but he ate. That was something. One morning, Maggie showed up, local vet with the kind of eyes that animals trust before people do. She watched Valor from the fence, arms folded, reading him like a book only she'd bothered to finish. He's sound, she said, but it's his mind that's been hurt. I asked what to do. She shrugged. Time. Patience. Don't go in hungry for a story. Easy for her to say. Word got around as it does. Hank, one of Valor's former owners, dropped by. But the thing is, I've been told to quit before, and it never stuck. That night, sitting on my porch with the wind curling under my collar, I thought about hope, how it's not about sense or pride, but about being dumb enough to try again. Somewhere in the field, Valor stood like a statue, blowing the silence back at me. Day by day I showed up, sat on a cottonwood log, boots in the dust, letting my presence be the conversation. I spoke to him, soft and honest, about anger and about being trapped inside yourself so long you forget how to be anything else. From now on, your name is Valor, I said, not because he needed a label, but because I needed something to hold on to. He didn't react, didn't bolt, didn't soften, just stood there, watching. But the world shifted a fraction, the air between us thinning out. On the 5th day, he didn't turn away when I approached. On the 10th, I got 2 steps closer before he tensed. The small victories stacked up, quiet and easy to miss unless you were counting on them. One morning, he took hay from my hand, his breath warm on my knuckles. And I thought, maybe we're getting somewhere. Let me back up a sec, because here's where the twist came. Sam, an old friend, pulled up, coffee in hand, and watched as Valor let me brush a hand down his neck. Never thought I'd see the day, he said. Maggie came by, nodded approval, said the horse had started to map me into his world. Not as a threat, not as nothing, but as something familiar. Then the storm hit. Lightning, wind screaming at the windows, the kind of night you feel in your bones. Out in the pen, Valor panicked as the shelter gave way, boards flying. I raced to help. A beam pinned me down, pain shooting through me, rain stinging my face. Valor could have run. Every bone in his body told him to bolt for freedom. But he hesitated, turned back, and with a force I still can't quite believe, smashed that beam until it splintered. I dragged myself free, leaned on him, and together we limped to safety. You just saved my damn life, I told him, and for the first time, he stood beside me, solid and unafraid. Next morning, the town came to see what was left of us. Clint, Maggie, even Hank, they all showed up expecting wreckage or worse. Instead, they found Valor standing calm, letting me slip a rope over his neck, leading him gentle through the ruins. Never thought I'd see the day, Hank muttered, shaking his head. Word spread. Folks who once crossed the street now asked after the gentle giant. At the county fair, kids lined up to touch him, Valor standing steady as a mountain. People asked if he was the biggest, if he was dangerous. I told them he wasn't mine the day I bought him. And I wasn't his the night he saved me. We chose each other 100 small times. Teachers invited us to schools. Kids listened with wide eyes, learned that trust is built in quiet, honest ways. If it feels like nothing's happening, you're probably doing it right, I told them. In town, folks started talking about second chances. Clint even called him the Horse of Hope at a fundraiser, lifting his hat in a salute I'll never forget. Valor's story changed more than just a reputation. It made people believe in work, in patience, in not giving up when the world says you should. There were hard days, of course. Cold mornings, broken fences, old hurts that don't fade. But in the quiet, Valor and I learned how to keep company, how to be present without demanding proof. Sometimes, that's all you need. Late afternoons, I'd sit on the porch, coffee cooling at my side, watching him graze. I'd think about how far we'd come, from a pen nobody wanted, through storms and doubt, to a peace that felt earned, not given. Sometimes people called it a miracle, said we were destined, or something like that. But if you ask me, it was just work, time, and the luck that looks like grace. I changed as much as Valor did, maybe more. I became the man I wanted to be, one day at a time. And when the evening came, he'd wander to the fence, touch his muzzle to my hand, and we'd stand there. No tricks, no applause, just alive together. You know what I mean? So, tell me, do you think a killer can become a savior? Or is that just a story we tell ourselves when we need to believe in hope? Drop your thoughts below. Let's talk about what it means to change, to trust, to try again. If this story moved you, hit like, share, and subscribe, because there's always another chance, another story waiting, just past the fence line.